Hey everyone, Matt here from Docs Running, and today we're going to do a review of the Hoka Arahi 7 and talk about who it might work best for. So the Hoka Arahi 7 is really the upper update to Hoka's long-standing stability shoe. Their stability shoe is a little bit different and tends to be lower drop and has a full-length medial post and a post that goes actually into the lateral heel just a little bit. It's been fairly similar over the last several iterations. The previous version 6, had a lighter upper. It was really nice getting into that lower 9-ounce range. Version 7 kind of takes that back a little bit, with the major updates being a new kind of flat knit upper up top and a little bit more durable outsole, which does increase the weight a little bit, although not super noticeable. It's just that this is a little bit more traditional now. It's not using kind of any newer foams. It's using a medial post, which is actually going to work for certain people, and we'll talk about who. But let's talk about the specs first. So men's size 9 is coming in at 9.6 ounces now, up a couple ounces from the point something ounces from the previous version. 8.3 ounces for women's size 8. It is 34 in the heel, 29 in the forefoot for still a 5mm drop. There is a compression molded EVA midsole plus the J frame going around here, and again this new outsole, which the new outsole has done pretty good. I've got about 20 miles on my pair and there is almost no wear on the outsole, which I was chewing through this fairly decently on the last version. I'm sure that does add a little bit of weight to it, but also having a little more durability there also does make the ride just a teeny bit firmer than the last version. This is not a soft shoe, although some people that have been maybe wearing like something like Vans or something more minimal, or from a more like classic walking shoe, coming to this will go, oh, it feels cushiony. That's just because there's more foam underfoot. It's not necessarily soft, it's just slightly firm, which is also okay for a stability shoe. Now, in terms of fit, which is again the major difference here, it still is fitting fairly snug to a little bit narrow. This honest upper actually feels a little bit thicker than the previous version, which I really like because it felt lighter, felt a little more performance-esque. This one doesn't as much, so those people that have normal to narrow width feet, that's probably who this is going to work best for. I found it just a little bit abrasive on my foot. It was fine for shorter runs. Not something I'm going to typically choose for a longer run, although it does absolutely fine once you when you break it in a little bit. Still a really stiff heel counter in the rear foot. It does lock down absolutely fine. Not a major issue, just a little bit different, a little bit thicker from the previous version. The stability is still something that's fairly consistent from how it's been in the past, where this is a rare shoe that if you need forefoot stability, the post actually goes all the way into the forefoot, which is really rare. There's not a lot of shoes that do this. Most stability shoes will have it in the heel and midfoot, which for a lot of things, that's kind of how it's done. Those people that have a little bit of instability at your that first metatarsophalangeal joint, maybe your peroneus longus muscle can't stabilize that front half of the arch really, really well, or some of the other muscles have some trouble there, this medial post can actually do really good if that's something you need, combined with the fact that there's no flexibility to this shoe at all. So that stiffness up front plus the medial post can do really well for the people that need forefoot stability, which is very rare in the industry. In the rear foot, because it's got a post on the lateral and medial side and a centered bevel, it's really good for people that need a stiffer rear foot, but also need a lower drop shoe. This is a bit more rare in the industry. The alternative to this is something like the Brooks Adrenaline series, which has a higher drop, but uses guide rails, kind of a more higher up option that kind of provides the same thing, stiffer rear foot, because it's both on the lateral and medial side. So if you find you need lower drop but a stiffer heel, this shoe is going to work really well. For me, it does make it feel a little bit clunky, but that's because of the stiffness, and that's going to work really, really well for some people. There is a bevel, that's what happens. In terms of the forefoot transition, this shoe for some reason feels like it's slightly long, so when you have a stiff shoe and a slightly longer feel to it, it just makes it feel a little bit stiffer. It's broken in kind of nicely with that. It does have an early rocker, which basically they call it early meta stage or something like that. It just means the rocker starts a little bit earlier, which does offset that. So for walking, this shoe feels fairly fine. When you run, just know you have to break the shoe in a little bit, and then it feels fine. The slightly firmer ride and the slightly stiffer ride does make it feel like it can go a little bit more up-tempo than some of the other stability shoes up there. It's not a racing shoe, although I know a lot of people that have used this as such. I think there's some lighter options out there, but if you need something a little bit more consistent, it's on the lighter end for a stability shoe, not the lightest, because you've got stuff like the Guide 17 stuff that are in this wheelhouse now. This is going to be a solid option for you. I again think really the people that this is going to benefit most is people that need full-length medial stability. As I mentioned before, people tend to like section this off in a lot of shoes, but if you need forefoot stability, if you just want it along the full medial length, this is going to be a good option. If you need a little bit more room, the alternative to this is going to be the Hoka Gaviota. And if I said that wrong, please comment below because I always do that. I'm trying to get my hands on a pair of those. I didn't get them, but they do, from what I understand, fit a little bit wider. I'll try to have a comparison review. I can have that. But that's the newest Arahi 7. Really an upper update. If you like the sole of the 6, you'd be probably fine getting the older version. But if you want this flattened upper and a little bit more durability, it might be something to consider.